Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of Coco in the Sun podcast. I am your host, Malika Crystal. Very blessed and happy to be here today. I have not done a podcast in a while, but I just didn't feel like doing it, and I just stayed true to my feelings, honestly. Also, been processing a lot with the new changes here in America, trying to ground myself and center myself and keep my joy. So today is the day that I had a little bit extra time and I just felt really good about doing a podcast. So I'm gonna continue with where we were in this book, The Gospel of Mary Magdalene. What else? Hmm. I think I am still getting my little nighttime messages. I probably got a lot since I last did a podcast. But the most recent ones I remember is to see the good in people, which I've always known to do, but not actually done. Seems like I focus more on like what's wrong and it's a bit critical. But to just see the good in them and focus on that, let that be the main thing, not what's wrong. So that came through in my dreams in a way that I understood it to my core. I always find it curious that something can be known and said so many times, but I don't get it until it's actually said to me in whatever way it's said to me in my dreams where I can feel it fully and understand it fully. I don't know how else to say, but like my whole being understood it. Um, Other things that came through is not to speak in a manner to invoke envy and jealousy. That came through very clear. Um, what else came through? Sharing with others if you can. That the joy of life really is connection and joy. Um, that is for you and with others. So that like that's the wealth. Like finances are okay too, but whether or not you have finances, you can see the beautiful sky and the sunset and the creatures of earth and have a good time with your friends and family that you feel safe um, and good with. And so that's the wealth. That's the wealth. That came through very strong that that is what makes life beautiful. What else is coming through? I saw like a podcast on YouTube the other day, and this lady was saying to invite the angels into your home. I had never thought to officially like just do that. Um, and she said to do it and see how your week goes or your day goes or how it changes. So I've been um working on that. I've had a few catalysts. Some, you guys know I'm listening to on Audibles, The Raw Contact. I'm on the second book now. It's really cool. The teachings and stuff in there. Some of it is really too high for me to grasp this round, but a lot of it I can understand and I can learn from, right? Some of it is very, very detailed and intricate, and it's just like, oh my God, I cannot follow where the questions going. These answers are so complicated and intricate that I can't remember all the details of it. But I really enjoy the book. And in the book, they talk about everything in life that happens along your path are catalysts for you to transmute to whatever you choose to transmute it to. So you can transmute it to something that's good or, to teach you, um, to evolve with, or you can use it something to feel better and feel like self pity for. And that either one isn't actually wrong. They are all experiences that we have come here to experience and to learn from. And uh, basically, we actually come to learn how far we are, what it feels like to be far from self and God, and what it feels like to be closer to self and God. And all of it is necessary. All of it is learning. All of it we grow from. Um, so I've been looking at things that happen in my life in that way, and I've had like a few catalysts occur, and I don't actually know. Sorry, my phone was ringing. I don't actually know if I transmitting it correctly, but they also said like there's no correct or wrong way. So just going to be at peace with how I'm working through it. So um I think they're starting to lean towards more on the positive side of things. Um, Whereas before it probably would have been more woe is me and these things always happen to me. And this is like, oh, what am I supposed to do here? How am I supposed to stretch myself and learn here? And I'm not always able to do that though, as sometimes I come in and out of it too. Sometimes I'm able to do it and then I'm back in it and like, this is horrible. Like I hate feeling like this. And why am I this way? And why did I respond in this way? And then sometimes I'm like, it's okay, and you're learning and you're growing and you're learning actually this. You're learning to speak your truth and set boundaries and standards for yourself. You're learning to not go where your needs aren't met, but also to allow others to be on their own journey and not having to meet anyone's needs. Allowing for that. So it's a lot of learning and it's kind of cool. So yeah, so I had a few of those. Feel like they're happening more rapidly now, like kind of one after the other, but it doesn't feel overwhelming most of the time. Um, so yeah, sometimes I do worry that if I respond in a certain way that my guides or my divine team will be upset with me and won't help me anymore. So that's also a learning process and trusting that I'm always loved and help is always there and not being too hard on myself too. And I am not as perfect as I would like to be. I'm not there for very long, though, I don't think. And I'm always able to eventually be like, I did think you did pretty good here. Oh, so this ring I got because I had a dream, and the dream analyst had said the people in the dream had on these green and pink colors that I really did not like. I did not like the colors together. And she was saying that the dream was telling me that pink is love or heart and green is healing. And that the dream was telling me these are things I need for my healing. And I really hated the colors in the dream. Anyway, ever since that, I've been seeing the color combination and shades of pink and green together in combinations that I like. The shades that they use and the tones are more of what I like. And I see it all the time in different ways. It could be earrings or an outfit or a bird or a candy. So anyway, I saw this ring and it's lab grown, so it's not like one that grows in the earth, but it's a watermelon tourmaline. I really love the colors of it. So I think it's the pink and green together. So it wasn't too expensive on Etsy, so I got it. So it represents my healing and love that they were saying that I needed in the dream. But anyway, so that's what's going on with me. In regards to the political stage, don't really have many comments on it, but I am using it as a catalyst. I'm hoping for the positive for me to grow in my own power and my own sovereignty. So, depending on what executive powers or executive orders are being laid out in a way to disempower and exclude, I use that for myself as they don't decide my inclusion or my power or my joys or my place on this earth. Um, that everyone belongs on the planet, and they shouldn't be limited to certain regions and all these laws and in place to tell people where they belong. So I choose to use it as everyone belongs everywhere, and I belong everywhere in all aspects of this planet because I am this planet. I am this planet, and everyone is too. So I'm using um yeah, those things that are going on politically that I do become aware of because I'm not looking at regular news. I actually get my news now on threads by people that are sharing the information, but in a funny and educated, witty way. That's how I like to get my news now. Um, and in an empowering way, not in a way of feeling like nothing can be done and we are effed. Um, that in the end, everything works out for the best interest of all and holding on to that thought. I remember having this when I said I was like the midwife of the earth, and the end of this, the earth is going to birth her new self and her new being. And then I got the understanding that this is the same intention and knowing I have to hold for humanity as a whole. And then I understood that this was the same intention and knowing I need to hold for myself as an aspect of humanity, as an aspect of earth, all being the same being in different aspects. It is so cool. Anyway, so yeah, so that's where I'm at with what's going on in the world right now. And then how the conversation of how the world is responding to the policies that are being placed here in America and enjoying the empowering of others that are not allowing themselves to be limited or silenced or using their gifts to speak about how they feel about what's going on in that dialogue. I think that's really interesting how it happens. Um, i.e. the Super Bowl halftime show. That was really cool. How all of that played out, how divinely timed it is, and how divine timing is everything, and hope and knowing that nothing happens that's not supposed to. So, anyways, let's get reading to the book. 1 second. Okay, guys, so let's get reading. I do not remember where we left off. I know we were in the commentary, right? So let's see. Okay. So last time they were talking about how the teacher said not to invent more laws, that there is no sin. And as with Paul, without the law, sin is dead and corruption is no more. So laws, I guess, make sense. They kind of define what's right or wrong. Contrast to this, those who invent laws also make sin exist. Of course, laws surely do have a pedagogical function. And in early stages of spiritual and physical development, it would be dangerous to do without them. A baby who eats food that's too solid will become ill, to use a metaphor of which Paul is fond. But for an adult, things are not the same. The Gospel of Mary is addressed to the adults who have integrated the laws in themselves. For them, the law is no longer a barrier to the movement of life and the inspirations of the Spirit. Like the wind, it fills the sails of their truest desires and calls them to the freedom of open spaces. In Hebrew, to be saved is to breathe freely. They are working on the house next door. So Let us now examine these parallels between Paul's epistle to the Romans and the Gospel of Mary. The following table will serve to show the correlation of several themes in Romans in those of Mary 7:11 to 19, and will also prepare us for the later commentary regarding Mary 9:2 to 4. Corrupt themes. Corruption or adulterous union which falls under the authority of law. Romans 7. Example of the woman who can no longer be considered an adulteress because she is free from the law. But if her husband is dead, she is free from that law, so that she is no adulteress, though she be married to another man. Romans 7:2. Gospel of Mary. When you act according to the habits of your corrupted nature. Mary 7:16. The next one they're going to talk about is belong to the resurrected one. Wherefore, my brothers, this is Romans 7 again. Wherefore, my brothers, you too have died to the law, so as to belong to another, to him who has raised from the dead. Romans 7:3 to 4. And in Mary, Gospel of Mary, it says, the disciples are commanded to follow the Son of Man without imposing any new law. Okay. The next theme we're going to talk about is liberation from the law that binds and enslaves. In Romans 7, they say, but now we are delivered from the law, for we become dead to that which bound us. Romans 7:6. In the Gospel of Mary, it says, do not add more laws to those given in the Torah, i.e., in the manner of a legislator, lest you become bound by them. Mary 9:2-4. The non-existence of sin is the next topic we're going to look at. Romans that, and then Gospel of Mary. Non-existence of sin. In Romans it says, for without the law, sin is dead. Romans 7:8. And in the Gospel of Mary it says, there is no sin. It is you who make sin exist. Mary 7:13-14. The next thing we talk about is the sequence: law, sin, death. Law, sin, death. In Romans, it says, but when the commandment came, sin came to life, and I died. Romans 7:9-10. And then the Gospel of Mary says, this is why you become sick and why you die. Mary's 7:21-22. The laws in conflict. That's the next thing we're going to talk about. In my inmost self, I delight in God's law, but in my members, I perceive another law, which is at war with the law of my intelligence and which holds me captive to the law of sin. Romans 7:22-23. And then Mary says in the Gospel of Mary, 2 commandments. Follow the Son of Man who dwells within oneself. And 2, shun the law of the legislator who brings enslavement. Mary 2-4 and 18-20. Just as Paul asks the Christians free themselves from the dominion of laws, traditional conscious and unconscious ones, so as to live through the spirit of the resurrection, the Gospel of Mary invites them to live the same freedom by abiding with the one who, in their own inmost being, incarnates all goodness and guides them into the vibrant flow of intimacy with their uncreated source. Page 7 continued. So, 20. This, page 7 of the Gospel of Mary continues. Verse 20. This is why the God has come into your midst. It acts together with the elements of your nature so as to reunite it with its roots. Lack calls for fullness. Thirst calls for the source. The good has come into our midst because the nature of matter involves lack. Humans, as we know them, are beings who feel a lack of being. The process of corruption begins with our own identification of this lack. We then confuse them, they then confuse themselves with the matter of which their bodies are composed, which ultimately leads to an experience of their own vanity and emptiness. Thus, we may finally become open to that which can fill them. In more traditional religious terms, it is said that sin calls forth the Savior. Blessed fault of Adam who gave us such a Redeemer, says the traditional chant for Easter night. Blessed corruption of Adama, which means potter's clay in Hebrew, whose fault was to identify himself with matter, which then enabled him to experience his nothingness. It is from this experience of lack that the call is born, the desire for not being for death. Where could such a strange desire have come from? How could such a madness of waiting for the unexpected have found its way into our genetic coding? What is it that transformed matter, Adama, a lump of clay, into Adam, the true human being capable of this essence of desire? Meister Eckhart, a Christian whose metaphysics was very close to the Gospel of Mary, said it more simply. If you do nothing, truly nothing, God cannot help but come into you. Unfortunately, in those who are full of themselves, there's no place for the other. This is why he added, if you leave, God can enter. This means that we must leave the illusion of taking ourselves to be something, an object that exists in time. We must return to our true being as subject, living in wonder at its manifestation in those transient objects that it calls its world, its body, its emotions, its personality. When we leave behind the illusion of belief in a permanent thing, the good can then come into our midst. In the heart of this finally accepted impermanence shines the presence of this unborn, unmade, uncreated, nothing that can be found in the all of which it is the cause. That was a lot. This is the clear light unimpeded by the opacity of all the things with which we are identified. In the midst of the heavy, the light is revealed. According to the Gospel of Mary, the teacher came in order to help free us from this ignorance, that is identification or corruption. For he is the very countenance, the incarnation, and the practice of this good. The good is the manifestation of the famous triad of the ancient philosophers: goodness, truth, and beauty. The good in this sense does not have evil as its opposite, for it means the unity of these three, the one. The unity of these three. The good in the sense does not have evil as its opposite, for it means the unity of these three, the one that embraces the multiplicity of all qualities through which it is expressed. What does goodness become when separated from light, consciousness, and truth? A softness that is the gateway to hypocrisy and compromise. What does truth become when separated from goodness, love, and beauty? A hardness that is the gateway of fanaticism and persecution. Wow. What does beauty become when separated from truth and goodness? Art for art's sake, an aesthetic that is the gateway to a brilliance that clarifies nothing. Beyond the realm of opposites, the good is the one, the doorway to being. This being can only manifest in a heart, body, and mind that have been emptied of all illusion, meaning all inflation and presumption, for it cannot fit into the straitjacket that they offer. This is why the good has come into our midst. It acts together with the elements of our nature so as to reunite it with its root. The radiance of presence has come to us, and we have seen its glory, or its kavod, as the Hebrews called it, the glory of the Son, full of grace and truth, which is also that of the Father or source. By planting the seeds of his knowledge, the sperma fell in Greek, in the elements. Where's that just? By planting the seeds of his knowledge in the elements of our nature, the teacher restores us to our own true heritage and ushers us back to endless resonance with our uncreated source, the Father, whom none has ever seen and none can know, but who is revealed to us through the monogenetic Son, the good that unites the ancient philosophers' triad. This invites us to live a life of glory, a life of love and consciousness, just as he did. This reunion with our roots is not a mere event in time, but an ever renewed relation with the source, engendering us in every instant. It is our ignorance that creates our distance from it. And this distance involves all sorts of sickness and suffering. By an ever new act of knowledge that is both metanoia in Greek, passing beyond the known, beyond the mind and memories of which we are composed. Hmm. Finished because they stopped making any noise. Okay, so where did we stop? By an ever new act of knowledge that is both metanoia in Greek, meaning passing beyond the known, beyond the mind and memories of which we are composed, and teshuva, Hebrew for the act of return, a turning about of our consciousness from our externalized, objectified being toward our inner being. We act from the deepest heart of our lack, from the intimate space of our desire of desires. This is the space where we believe the inspiration of the teacher and his teacher. He continues, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, page 7 continued. Then he continued, this is why you become sick and why you die. It is the result of your actions. What you do takes you further away. Those who have ears, let them hear. Having spoken of matter and its impermanence and the attachment and identification with this impermanence, the teacher now shows the consequences of ignorance and attachment. Sickness, suffering, and death are the consequences of our acts. There is no one to blame for this. And it is vain to complain and expostulate about the evil nature of matter, the world, and humanity. There is no room here for hatred of the world, for it has been clearly stated that there is no sin, no evil. Evil and sin arise from the blame in ourselves. It is interesting to note that with the exegesis of Revelation, some of the desert fathers of early Christianity saw the sign of deliverance in this teaching of no blame or accusation of others. He is dead, the blamer of our brothers, they said. This blamer is the shaitan or obstacle in Hebrew, the diabolos or divider in Greek in us. When he is dead, there is no longer a place for him in us. We are free. The slave, the victim, and therefore the blamer of circumstances is dead in us because it is no longer fed. It is replaced by the living, symbolized as the son who takes all responsibility for what happens. We cease to accuse others or ourselves and instead begin to observe the pattern of causes and effects that have led to this state of sickness, suffering, and death. It is a condition that can be remedied only through a transformation of our own actions, attitudes, and ways of life. The Savior is to be found within, not elsewhere. The source of knowledge enabling us to understand what happens to us is found within. No other person can dictate to any one of us some attitude or course of action that we then must follow blindly. The teacher prefers us with our eyes open. He is that intelligence within us that opens our hearts and our eyes to the outside, to the world in which, either for a long time or a short time now, we must live, feel, think, hurt, cry, laugh, and love. His teaching is liberating, but it is also demanding. If you are sick, you must stop blaming your early childhood, your parents, society, the church, the evil world, and so forth, and stop blaming yourself as well. This is the great teaching that recurs in the other Gospels as well. Do not judge, for your own judgment will judge you. Observe, be attentive, see what can be done, but do not waste your time, your energy, and your soul with any sort of blame. You are the result of your actions and attitudes, but it is only through them that you can be transformed and hope for a better life. Even death, or what you imagine to be death, is a consequence of your actions and attitudes. That which you call death is the expression of a disordered intellect that has long ago identified yourself with your mortal body, along with its thoughts, emotions, and mortal attachments. As we said earlier, this disordered perception is the fruit of your corrupted nature. What you do takes you further away. Something important is being communicated here, and it implies a deep and transformative questioning of ourselves. Are the things we do with regard to our work, relationships, lifestyle, attitudes, bringing us closer to being? Or are they taking us further away? Do our actions awaken the good in us, where truth, goodness, and beauty are one? Or are they inclining us to live more and more with bitterness and aversion, lies, ill will, and violence? Is all that we do bringing us closer to the Son within us, to intimacy with His and our origin in the breath of the Spirit? Or does it take us further away towards exile from our true identity, so that we become slaves to circumstances, whether favorable or unfavorable, and thereby cut ourselves off from our true life and source, which in every instant gives us our being? In sum, are my actions the expression of being, or are they a caricature of it? Are they a manifestation of it, or a repression of it? Do my acts express my word? Does my word express my thought? Does my thought express my desire? Does my desire express my being? Does my being express the being that is what it is? The I am that calls me to be. This is not some mundane examination of conscience. It is conscience of consciousness itself, the consciousness of myself as a path, either a path of return or a path that goes further and further away. It can be an act of presence in which everything becomes strangely present, regardless of whether the content is agreeable or disagreeable, For this is the very presence of the being that constantly creates all being. Ah, but it can also become an act of absence in which everything becomes strangely absent, a wasteland of missing being. In this mode, everything, however stimulating or entertaining, has the stale taste of exile deep down. Whether the content is agreeable or disagreeable is of no real importance because everything ultimately feels empty of meaning. This is the path that can take you away from home, sometimes indulging a belief that no return is possible, that home does not exist, and that meaninglessness and absurdity are inherent in the human condition. The choice here is mine alone. How shall I use my intelligence and my imagination? The teacher made it clear. The teacher himself made it clear. Your unhappiness is the consequence of your actions, and your actions are the consequence of your choice. What you do takes you farther away. As Paul of Tarsus put it, instead of the good you desire, you do the evil you do not desire. Those who have ears, let them hear. Okay, I'm going to stop here today. This book is pretty long, golly. But we're going to stick with it. We're going to stick with it. We're going to finish it, God willing. Unless I think it's just better to do something more that I enjoy and just switch it. I don't think I will probably finish it. Anyway, guys, I hope you had a great weekend and a great few weeks, even though I wasn't on here. I hope you're able to process in a way that helps with your growth and your evolution and your acceptance of self and your sovereignty of self. Sometimes that looks very messy. Um, and that's okay too. Sometimes it's really smooth and you get the ideas clear, and that's okay too. Both experiences are valid. So as we figure this all out together, wishing you lots of peace and joy and understanding of yourself and allowing for yourself to learn, to make mistakes and to get better and fit to take as long as it needs to take. You're on your own timing, you know? Anyways, I hope you have a great week. I hope you're gentle with yourself, you take time with yourself. You're able to sit in the quiet and hear your own special language with your divine team. And wishing you much joy until next time. Bye.